Alright, so up and streaming live on YouTube thus far. Couple of seconds. Let me start with the Facebook. So we start there on Facebook. Let me come over to Facebook, make sure everything. Connecting to streaming software to go live. Connecting to video source. Alright, so we're looking live and ready. What's the name of this stream? Post on timeline. When you're going live now. Public. What the live is about? That's a good question. We'll drop some more videos over the coming days. I'm going to let you know. I didn't really think about a Facebook title for this video. Alright, for those who already seen on YouTube, I'll be talking about a number of things in this video. I want you to have the patience to listen. I want to, respond to a comment that I would have received because it serves as a springboard. Well, let me hold my thoughts a little. Let me just ensure that I say what my life is about. Okay, because say my goal is to let you know that PPP is not good for our country and that I would like you to support AFC come 1st September. That's basically simple expectation. Alright, so I'm going to work with that Work with that. Okay, description required. My goal is to let you know. So the title is Better Must Come. All right. Maybe just make it like a shout, exclamation mark. Yeah. Okay, can't find exclamation marks only on my keyboard. It's a nervous yes get. Oh. I still up there. Alright. Alright. Add a group to promote. We have a couple of groups. Shucks, I don't manage on these groups. Okay. Notify people in Messenger. Build your audience, use marketing to notify people. Okay. Get started. What's that about? Once per day, they will not receive as many if you already sent one that day. Okay. Okay. And then the next step is to go live. All right, so here we go. All right, so I'm live. Greetings one and all. So I know customary when I listen to people live, sometimes they usually say things like, share the live, join the live, and so on. And I want to encourage you to mostly, let us stay in the live. Let us have a discussion in the live. Drop your questions, drop your comments, right? So that we could basically have an interaction. right? However, today, this live is basically to build on the last video that I did, which I was calling for us to ensure that we have scrutineers, right, at all our polling stations, and I'm talking to all the opposition parties, right? I encourage in area, I mean, one of the biggest things about election season is financing, and finances usually come through fundraisers, through donations and donors. And we living in a season right now whereby, that you cannot, if you're gonna put your money behind somebody, you want to feel the security that, that they stand a good chance of winning these elections. Because if word only get out, right, to the ruling party currently, that you would have sponsored or supported one of these other parties, whether it be AFC, UPNO, and stuff, you put yourself and business at risk. And that's one of the problems with this country, one of the problems with this government specifically, right? Very vindictive, right? They marginalize persons who do not support them. They only create opportunities for those who could pledge their allegiance to them. And that in itself is why I personally believe that they should go. All right, so saying all that, I want to get to this. I want to start off by, that was like a start, but I want to get to this point here. So I had this video up. You guys saw the video where I was calling for, these parties to unite in terms to ensure that we have good coverage at all the polling stations. And somebody dropped a comment. I'm telling you, this video has approximately about 3,000 views there about, right? And this one comment, this one comment, I'm gonna throw it up on screen, it had me in a sense whereby it actually gives me an opportunity to say what I want to say the right way. You understand? And that's one of the things you must understand, especially in these seasons. I'm gonna say a lot of things, and what's important is that you say it, but you say it the right way, because some persons are very much, what I've said before, very much attached for whatever reasons to their beliefs and party or the group that they support. That I simply saying that, that the People Progressive Party is not good for the country, you understand, is what could be one of the most offensive things to them. And I just want to take the opportunity to let you know that, the truth must be told. However, I always believe in, especially putting over strong messages, put it over in a way that people must feel that you indeed love and care for them. And the reasons why I have to say what needs to be said and give you a different perspective of things, regardless of all the seemingly good things and all the noise that is going around and persons boasting of accomplishments and achievements and so on. It is, when I'm able to share my perspective, I'm hopefully you're able to see that even though you might have living in a fancy house, all right, things in the home is not nice. It's not good at all, all right? And, over time I'll try to elaborate or explain what I mean by that. And hopefully the call to action is that come the 1st of September, that when you go to the polling station, you support the best party in this competition, because that's what it is. A number of persons or groups competing for your vote. And I want to articulate and show you that the AFC is the best out of the lot. So let me go to the comment. All right, let me go to the comment. I'm going to show it up on screen. All right, so let me see. I should have that comment on standby. Number 5. So here's the comment. All right. So it says, "Sir, I respect your views at this time, but let's put aside Ali, UPNO, and AFC and try a win vote. Come on board. Don't waste your time on previous administrators. Let's give Mr. Azardine Mohammed, who has all Guyanese at heart. He will truly share the wealth of Guyana." let's vote to win. And in a nutshell, what I understand she is saying is that, yes, she glad I'm encouraging and I'm backing AFC and stuff, but, don't let us worry with the same old, same old. Let us go and support something new. And this is one of these elections is very important to this country. And just like this person, I was sitting because for the past 5 years, or let's say about 7 or 8 years, I have not been involved in politics right since after the local government elections, because that was where I started out, wanting to see a change in my community. And, I believe when I read the law books as it pertains to what is the meaning of local government I recognize that local government is about grassroots leadership. It's about, not about the big parties. That's how I understand and interpret it. It's not about a opportunity for us to consolidate power like how PPP and even APNU would have desired. And so I was saying all this to say that, so when she said, don't let us waste time with the same old, it dawned on me that one of the reasons why I decided to continue to support AFC, one, AFC always, it was established with the belief that the rule of law, you understand, everything should be done in a way that is fair and equal opportunities must be given to all. It was a party that was different than the old PPP and PNC battles that, though would have taken us different places, really and truly has not brought us to a point whereby we could really say that we have really grown much for a nation. Because even though we might improve in infrastructure, our relationships between people, because, for somehow, there's a divisiveness that exists between the two parties. And so I was basically looking at the fact that AFC, it stands for something different. And for the first time in a long time, that I believe that AFC has a leader now that embraces the ideologies, what the AFC stands for. Meaning that when you look at Mr. Nigel Hughes, he's a man of integrity. And I'm saying integrity in a broad sense, you understand, or not necessarily in a broad sense, but in the sense whereby you look at him as a leader, how he would have led personally and professionally in the space that we are aware of. You understand? I don't think you could cast a stone and say that, that this guy is corrupt and anything of the sort. And he also brings this fresh and realness to leadership, whereby he believes in innovation, he believes in research, he believes in making decisions based on consultation with those who are going to be affected. He believes in looking at the data to be informed on what decisions to be taken. And what I recognize too from him is that when he's not knowledgeable or have the expertise or experience in the area, he's always open to invite persons with that speciality to lend their voice or share their opinion or position so that he could possibly be guided, And so when I think about what AFC represents today, not only as an organization, but the fact that you have a leader who goals and whole outlook, you understand, basically go hand in hand with what the party stands for. I think that is something good and great for not only AFC, but the country at large. And I'm saying this to say that if you look at every other political party, right, in comparison to AFC, you're not going to tick all those boxes. You're not going to tick all the boxes. And I'm intentionally not going to compare what is over at WIN and what is over at PPP and what is over at APNU. You understand? Because, sometimes those things could lead us to some serious analysis. And I could be somewhat biased sometimes because, I might not know everything about everybody and I might share opinions loosely. But you think about it. Talk about integrity, personal and professional. If you talk about somebody that comes with a new, modern, fresh approach, not a part of the old political systems. And I'm telling you this, one of the things that I admire about Nigel Hughes is that I can remember back in 2016 when local government was reinstituted. He was one of the few or the only politician that I know that was part of one of the major at the time the coalition who stepped out of what the coalition wanted and came to the ground to support independent groups. I know he was here in Bartico. You understand? He was there when we launched, when we had the bigger group being launched. He was there to give, words of encouragement and support and stuff. And, so he's a guy that doesn't run with the same old and have the same views and ideas. And one of the things that I admire about Nigel Hughes is that he's a guy that stands for, I guess because maybe he's a lawyer too and he understands the importance of justice. And I think it's because he would have, traveled and went to places and see how things could be different. But he believed strong in the rule of law. And one of the things I think that led to him walking away from politics for a period of time was the fact that, the coalition, though we campaigned, we want constitutional reform, it wasn't something that was going anywhere. You understand? So in a sense, he was just like wasting his time pushing for something at that moment in time that was not gaining any traction because nobody, and I want you to listen to what's going on the ground, there's no party other than AFC that is pushing for constitutional reform. You understand? Not just, having people come in and say, okay, we want the constitutional reform and stuff and so on, but to really address the issues that are affecting our country, especially in the area where you're talking about, win all politics, whereby once you get, I can't say the majority of seats, right? But you have the majority of seats, but not necessarily the popular vote or the majority of the votes. But once you have the most seats in comparison to the other groups, you automatically control the entire country and everything. You understand? And that is due to the fact that we have executive powers and stuff that are given to our leaders and stuff. These are things that needs to be reformed and our election process, our systems must be reformed. And that is something I know that he has a passion for. And I'm telling you, there's no other party right now that is looking at really changing the current systems to ensure that everybody, you understand, is properly represented. Right? Because right now is basically whoever has the most seats, whether you have 55% or more of the votes or 50% of the votes, you basically make all the decisions for 100% of the people without any consultation in most cases from the other, 4 to 5% or so. So, that is one of the areas I think that he stands out as somebody who's looking to ensure that we have fair and good laws. Because for any society to be successful, for any society to grow, right, you need to have good policies and laws, and not just laws, but enforcement of laws, and ensure that laws are fair to others. And those are some of his strong qualities that he fights for, and that is some of the qualities that are enshrined in the Constitution of AFC. And so I'm saying to you that when you look at all the other players right now, all of them have their different strengths, right? And they do have weaknesses. But I'm saying when you look at it, Nigel Hughes is the best out of all, right? He is the best. And if you doubt it, leave a comment, tell me something that I don't know. I'm glad to hear, right? So when the person told me, I should waste time behind these parties, I really took time to, do some introspection to think about what really I'm standing for. And I could say without shame that, right, or any reservation, that the AFC, in terms of its policy, in terms of its leader, it is the best right now for Guyana, right? Best right now for Guyana, right? Very much modern, up to the times, you understand, visionary thinking, and do have the ability to implement. So I want to encourage you guys, come 1st of September, that you go out regardless if you've been, running behind the bandwagon of PPP, running behind the bandwagon of APNU, running behind the bandwagon of not AFC, WIN, that now is an opportunity for you to, when it comes on the 1st of September, to make a conscious decision. Because these decisions are important. It can't be just about, who's more popular. It is not fair for you to say, I know this person might not be perfect or might not be, perfect. And I mean perfect in character and the way they handle and do business and do things, or, whether personally or professionally, and say, but still they deserve a chance. Because of what I'm hearing, people say, no, this individual is not perfect, but, right? He's been trying, The president is not perfect, but he's been trying, and therefore we should give him a second chance. When you have somebody who, over time, has proven themselves to be consistent in the way they operate, consistent in the way that they think and envision the future of our country, and you're going to tell yourself, you know what, I'd rather give the person that is, have a lot of shortcomings or have a few shortcomings in very critical area for country. And you're going to say, I'm going to accept because, that seems to be the popular movement. And if by chance, you have those views and stuff, I'm saying, even though I'm talking here today, I'm telling you, I'm so frustrated sometimes, fed up by how things are being done in this country, that I pray for a change. Honestly, I do pray for a change of government. And to be honest with you, sometimes I really think that I will say, sometimes I don't care where the change come from, you understand, whoever it is. Whether it's going to be WIN, whether it's going to be APNU, you understand, if it's not going to be AFC, I just need a change. And that's how things are so frustrating in this country, that majority of Guyanese would have gravitated towards a group, a new group, because we are desperately in need of a change. And, it surprised me sometimes, the rhetoric that I hear coming from those who support the government and PPP, about all the transformational changes and stuff and so on. So I could say to myself, maybe I'm very much biased as an individual, and maybe I'm just closing my eyes to all the transformation. But you're trying to tell me that all those individuals that are running behind APNU, running behind WIN, all those individuals are lying to all the good things that have been going on? I just asking the question. Because one of the arguments that I would have heard, and I think it's kind of true too, is that, the opposition over the past 5 years, talking from APNU to AFC, right, and now WIN joins the run, and we have some other small parties, right? We were not effective in campaigning and, going into communities and having meetings and speaking to the people. So I'm telling you, that is the narrative that is out there, and I kind of believe it is true. So it therefore means, the point I'm getting at is that there is no way, with all the propaganda and some truths that are being pushed by the government every Thursday on that program, on that podcast, or whatever you want to call it, press conference, every day on the news, you have newsroom, you have all these different media that is pushing the government's agenda, morning, noon, and night. And then the opposition, on the other hand, has not been so active as they ought to be, in my opinion and the opinion of many. And yet, so many Guyanese are running to WIN, APNU, and not so visible as I would have admitted before. to the AFC movement. So the point I'm getting, I hope you're getting the point, is that with all the work of the government and all of their supporters and media and so on, and the lack of effort by the opposition over the years to fight and push their narrative, yet so many Guyanese are not pleased and dissatisfied with the service being rendered by our government. I don't believe that they're being biased. I don't believe for a second they're blind. Maybe just indeed, things are as bad as we see it and feel it. And I hope those who are supporting PPP right now really take some time to look up and do some introspection of what really we would have gained over the past 5 years. I'm not one to, be unfair when I make judgment. But when I think about what's going on in my country, there's so much desires that I have that, and that is not personal desires, you understand? There's so much desires that I have that I know could have been different if we had a government that believes in justice, if we had a government that believes in consultation, if we had a government that believes in redistribution of the wealth, of the nation's wealth, in a consistent, fair, and policy-driven manner. So much could have been different if the government would have done things to control our economy. I'm not saying that they haven't done anything, please. We're going to talk about it. Things could have been much different if I could have selected the party that I wanted to select and still be able to compete and enjoy, the blessings of the land. I think about it this way. When I say my pledge, I pledge myself to honor always the flag of Guyana and to be loyal to my country, to be obedient to the laws of Guyana, to love my fellow citizens, and dedicate my energies towards the happiness and prosperity of Guyana. When you think about the pledge, you pledge the country, not to a political party, but in Guyana. If you only stand to criticize anything that this government is doing, you would have basically saying that your opportunities for prosperity has become even harder to attain. And that is what's wrong with this country. So, since I'm talking about what's wrong with the country, I think it's in all fairness, let me just stay on the subject and talk about that a little. And why AFC is the better choice. The first thing first, let me give some praises where praise is due. One of the key things I know from this government is that it would have spent a lot of money. And for that money to be spent with some amount of transparency or coverage, or in a way that, you can't just go into the government, country's account and just take the money just like that and don't show any sign that you would have utilized this money for whatever purpose. So my point is that we would have spent a lot of money, and hence you must have to see works, you must have to see projects. So wherever there's a road that never had a road, you understand, you got to say thank you for executing the duty or the service. But I want to say to you that while it is good to have, infrastructure work being done, you understand, building the harbor bridge, you see, there's a thing about this government. It's like you want to give praises for the good things they would have done, but even the good things sometimes they execute so badly. The good things they execute so corruptly that it's like you gotta give praise in one. I can't say I get two mouths, but in one hand you gotta offer praise, and the next hand you gotta like grab it back because they are just too corrupt, just too corrupt. And I guess some people are asking, what's the evidence of the corruption? First of all, this government has a habit of not doing any feasibility studies. A prime example, the gas to shore. I don't know all the details surrounding it, but I know there was a lot of pushback that it wasn't the best place. I know organizations would have said, would have pinpointed their, better areas to put this project. One of the reasons that we weren't able to get the loan at the beginning was that the feasibility study was not done. Yet it surprised me that out of the blues, against my expectation, that the American bank decided to give us the loan. That in itself is dangerous because there was no markers. That's my point I'm getting at. Because we would have already been spending our own money towards this project. And the project was already experiencing a lot of issues and setback. And up to this day, I cannot understand how that bank decided to give Guyana the money. The only thing I could see is that it's basically setting us up to be in debt. That's how I see it. But again, that project hasn't gone anywhere that we could basically measure and say that it's tangible at this time. I was making the point about the Harbor Bridge. The Harbor Bridge is something that is needed. I could see that it's needed. But when you look at its implementation, you recognize that they're actually taking all the traffic on the west side and putting everybody at one exit, which is supposed to be a highway. Now, please note, a highway is when I think about a highway and I envision a highway is that, you're moving at least 50 kilometers per hour thereabout, or even a little bit higher, and you're running up and down, up and down. But basically, just like what's happening at Peters Hall when you exit the Harbor Bridge, currently, right, Denmark Harbor Bridge, it's going to happen at that bridge on the highway. Now, again, if there was if there was a fear or a feasibility study, somewhere along the line they would have to recognize, to exit this bridge, we need to put, different options or route. Can't push everybody onto one road. So that in itself, have me thinking, yes, they're doing something good, but then it's not implemented in the most ideal way, so to speak. And hence you give praise in one hand and you take it back in the other. To move the people, I'm just trying to show you what is really bad in this country is how dangerous this government is. So even to put this harbor bridge, there was a controversy about the lands that they need in order to, to drive their posts and stuff. So they wanted some people to give up their lands. And what was out there is that they would have given different payments to different persons. In other words, persons who had a house of a lower standard, right, receive more money offered by the government than those who have a better looking house or something of this sort. I don't want to get into the reasons for all that and so on because that will just be a whole lot of speculation. But again, the fairness, right? There's no fairness in what they do. And to make matters worse, you know what the government did? Because they have one seat majority in the House, in Parliament. And because they had this little encounter whereby persons weren't receiving fair compensation for their property, they went to Parliament, passed a law, basically saying that if ever the government wants a land, right, for what they may classify as, national interests, they can basically take it from you and allow the court to decide how much you should be paid. You understand? taking away that responsibility whereby they're supposed to come and negotiate with you and see how they could, come to a fair settlement. They're saying, you know what? We're going to take your land, run how much you want. That's my interpretation of it, mind you. Right? Those who are learned in law and stuff and know it better than this, you could come and give me a version. I'm fine with that. But they're basically saying, you understand, we take your land to do whatever project we want to do, and you could run what you want and let the courts deal with you and give you the best compensation. That's what this government did to us. So nobody is no longer have that, how must I say, that autonomy. Nobody, you could have that confidence, I have a transport or I have a title and right, and that's like supreme law, and anybody who wants it gotta come right. No. The government would have taken away that right. Just because getting the lands that they wanted for the bridge wasn't a walk in the park, because persons were very upset that they were giving persons special treatment in terms of how much they were paying. No country could ever be good if you don't have fairness and justice. And I tell you, we could talk whole day about justice in this land, because no matter how beautiful a school building is, in which I know the government would have built some beautiful schools. If they have recreation facilities, another story. But let's talk about the buildings. They would have built a few nice buildings. They would have renovated a few nice schools, and they would have started and completed a few beautiful schools. And I said, I gotta give jackets jacket. If those schools are needed in those places, maybe it is something that we would like to have, maybe not necessarily something that we must have, but for those who would enjoy the benefit, I guess it's going to be something nice to them. But here, what I'm telling you, see, that's what I'm saying. When you give the government praise in one hand, somehow you got to take it back in another. For instance, so you go and build a new school. I'm just using a place hypothetical, right? Hypothetically, meaning that, it's just, I'm just using a scenario. So, and I'm calling a name of a place, right? So, for example, right? So, you decide to go build a school in Joala, a secondary school in Joala. And the reason for that is because Joala may produce about, let's say, 10 students every year for secondary school, right? Or 15 students every year. So what usually happens in these hinterland areas is that there's only, especially in Region 7, there's only there are 3 dormitory schools. One in Ramadan and 2 in Bartica, right? Which will be Bartica Secondary and 3 Miles respectively. So you'll find is that, these 15 students from Joala will have to go and live in the dormitory at Ramadan and be away from their homes. And some would come out to Bartica depending on their performance and stuff. They'll come to 3 Miles. And so the government thought it best, you know what? Yes, the dorms, they're becoming overcrowded, that's a fact. But what the government doesn't tell you is that the schools themselves, as it is, 3 Miles, Bartica Secondary, or Ramadan, you understand? The schools are filled to capacity. There's not enough classrooms based on the number of students. So, rather than seek to expand the schools currently as it is, like in the central areas, they're going to spend 63 million or how much, hundreds of millions, and build a school in Joala, which is going to take in about 15 students per term or 20 students per term. It could be more, right? That's not the point. But yet, Bartica, or Ramadan, and 3 Miles, even if you take away those 15, 20, 30 students, 40 students, those schools are still overcrowded. And that's over 5 years now. And I'm asking myself, where is the solution to reduce the student population in these areas? 15 students coming away from Barca Secondary. Well, matter of fact, persons don't actually leave Barca and go to Ramadan and stuff. So these schools, as I'm saying, in Region 7 are currently filled to capacity. There's not sufficient space. The whole entire auditoriums are being utilized for classrooms. Some cases there's no partition walls or anything of the sort. They're just there, maybe with a blackboard or a whiteboard between them, and that's it. And that's for years. So, and that's what I'm saying, but the problem with this government is that they do not consult with the people. They don't do proper feasibility study. All they've been doing good is spending our money. You understand? And so you find that the students in Bardica, in Region 7, at these schools currently, are not in the most productive or most ideal, you understand, learning environment. But yet there's a school being built in Jawala, and nothing being done to either add more capacity to the schools to hold more students, or even to create another school in the vicinity so that students could now have another school to go to. But there's a school being built in Jawala, which is good for those who live in Jawala. Means those students won't have to leave their homes, right? However, priority. While those students at Jawala could have attended the dormitory school, just like that has been going on for a little longer if needed be. But I believe, and this is my point, I believe that there was or is enough resources that both could have been done. Maybe not at the same time or the same year, but both could have been addressed. But what is the priority? We asking for better performance, but yet the learning environment has not been enhanced to give the students that, that ability or that scope so they could learn in comfort. So, as I said, when you think about this government, they don't have fairness. They don't practice good governance. They don't do feasibility studies. They don't know how to, or they don't show signs that they could prioritize, what is important, what can wait and what cannot wait. And because they don't do any of these things for good governance, they do projects that do not actually bear the fruit that they want to sell us. You understand? And so when you find the Guyanese are fed up, it's not just because the government is not spending money on transformative projects such as schools and so on, and roads and so on. It's just that the way they go about doing it, without consultation, they usually mess up something that could have been good. Right? One of the things that I struggle to do is to really find something. I think about a project, and this brings me to the other point. So we live in a system where they don't do consultation. They don't be fair and just to their people. In other words, they are very biased. They give the friends and family, you understand, the resources of the country rather than, I don't want to jump all about the place. I want to stick on, that's what I'm saying. I could spend a whole hour talking just about, the failures of this government, in just not being fair and just. So let me just jump off of that a little and linger a little bit more about justice. And this is for every right-thinking Guyanese. I want you to think for a second. Is there any one of you that is not connected to a minister or any government official and don't have money? Do you believe for any second that if by chance a minister accidentally hit you or hit a family member, accidentally, out it, right? Do you feel by any way you're going to get justice? If by chance one of your family member has been sexually assaulted by somebody with money or connection, do you think that you're going to actually get justice? And most Guyanese know that the answer to that question is no. That tells you that the system or the country is so corrupt that while we have nice roads and newly built schools, where there's no justice, nobody can feel comfortable. And this is one of the hallmarks of this government. They do nothing, absolutely nothing, to ensure fairness, justice, accountability, transparency. Nothing. Ask yourself, one policy that exists, or one system that exists that ensures that law enforcement are held accountable, that ministers are held accountable. How is it that with name? Engineers working for about $300,000 a month or so, you understand, working with the government. How are they able to amass such wealth, you understand, to drive the most high-class vehicles, you understand, have the most, what must I say, luxurious house, and bank accounts loaded with millions? How can prime ministerial representatives, you understand, amass such wealth, you understand, that they could build mansions, and REOs? I'm talking about public servants. Even if those things were, what must I say, achieved through legitimate means, where are the checks and balance? When have you ever heard that the government is going to check and ensure, you understand, that there's no corruption within its cabinet? And this brings me to the point that all those who run behind this government and say that, they have been doing great things, they've been doing a lot of transformative projects. And you fully well, Guyanese, know that these people are giving contracts and collecting kickbacks. That's what they've been doing all the time. So there's no justice, there's no fairness in the application of the laws and the rules and the policies that are written. When you talk about contract is another story by itself. For those who are receiving contracts, I could understand you saying, okay, I don't want to lose the opportunity of receiving contracts, and hence I'm going to continue supporting the government. I can't fight you down for that. But the thing is, I'm watching that is that we do recognize that these contracts, even before they're put out there, persons are already preparing for it because they already know that the work is already theirs. We know the procurement laws talk about giving 20% of all the contracts being given out, 20% of it should go to small contractors. What this government did is I don't even know how they do it. All I is hearing in the news, okay, they give out $163 million in contracts to 63 persons. Come on. No, nothing unpublished. You understand? All contractors weren't invited to a meeting and said, maybe we're going to do a lottery and stuff, and you're going to pull, or something, some way to make it fair and competitive. But no, you guys call up those who you want to be at your meetings, you understand, beforehand. You already earmark who's going to get, and then you give it to them. How can that be fair? And then get nobody, not a single Guyanese, I'm being quite honest here, can come out and say that don't happen. And if you're going to condone that in a government and say that this government is the best government since sliced bread, something wrong, buddy. Something got to wrong. It therefore means that integrity, you understand, principles, the pledge that you take to ensure that you're going to love your fellow citizens, you don't love your fellow citizens, you love yourself. Because when things are done that way, it means those who do not support or stand in solidarity with the government, you understand, cannot or will not receive the benefits that should have rightly belonged to them. I know all of us can't get same time. You understand? All of us can't get work and contracts at the same time. But come on, make it fair that I could stand a chance in getting it, regardless of my political affiliations and views. But that does not exist in this country. So, if you talk about justice, this government fail. Talk about transparency, this government fail. Talk about accountability, this government fail. This government is a very much corrupt government. And there's not shades to the president or the vice president or any particular individual. But this government has fostered a system or a culture of corruption that everybody under, you understand, subscribes to it. And some persons benefit from living like that. But what about the 60% of the Guyanese who want to live right? All right? What about those who don't want to compromise their views and standard? What about those who are free thinkers and would like to see that the road is not being done well and say that this road here is being done is not a good road, or the quality of this road work is bad, it needs to be improved? What about those who want to speak freely? You're trying to tell me that those persons are not entitled to living in this country because they see wrong and call it out? One of the weaknesses of this government, and I think it's a spin-off because of how corrupt the whole system is that there is little oversight of things being done in this country. You have guys putting up a 63 million or 100 and something million, and I'm talking about Bartica here. What's it they're actually building? Not a park, but a recreation facility. 100 and something, I can't remember how much millions, but a whole lot of millions. And there is no engineer or supervisor of works or superintendent of works that is overlooking these projects. First of all, you give it away to somebody who has little or no experience in the area. Fine. Everybody deserves an opportunity. You understand? So you give them an opportunity. No engineer to supervise the work. And that is why a lot of the projects are failing. When it is done and we say it's finished, no, it ain't finished. People got the road break up in a short period of time, the bridge fall down, the lantern post falling, you understand, right? Anything that could go wrong seems to be going wrong under every single thing that this government is actually building. And this brings me back to a point I'm going to make earlier. I struggle to see, and if you see it, you let me know. I struggle to see one successful project that this government has implemented since 2020 and even before. I struggle to see. Well, actually, I have one. There is one major transforming project I think this government did, and I'll give it a pass grade. To be honest with you, for all the years I have never been to the place. But from looking on television, it seems to be holding up. The only project I know that this government would have done successfully that we could still reap the benefits of from today, not Gaisuko. The only thing that I know this government would have done, and it stood up on today, like today, is the cricket stadium That's the only thing that hold up. I have never seen this government build a road that lasted. Never. Never. If you know one, you drop it in the comments and let me hear about it. I've never seen them build a bridge that really hold up. If you know one, let me hear about it. I guess maybe they have some success with water. Well, oh shucks, why did I go down that road? Oh boy. They would have had success in building water plant. Can't say water treatment plant because from all evidence, the water seems not to be treated. So again, as you're telling you, every time you try to give this government praise, you understand, it's like you gotta take it back with the next hand because they're not doing anything well. They're spending the money, yes. Some of it is being channeled in the right direction, but when it goes in the right direction, the implementation is terrible. Why? Because there's no proper oversight, there's no proper standard, there's no proper policy. And that is the problem with the government. And every time we're supposed to be making us one step forward in our transformation, we're taking 2 steps backwards. Because we're getting shoddy constructions or shoddy or poor work. And we got to keep spending money again to repair and replace, and you have people who are disgruntled and dissatisfied with the services that they're receiving. So I was making the point that I struggle to see the life transforming projects. Now, the Harbour Bridge, it's near completion. I already shared some views about, its effectiveness in managing the traffic and stuff, but it's looking good in the air, I must admit. And I trust by God's grace that when it's finished, it helps and it stands up. But then again, I heard that the Minister of Work said that they're not going to do any load-bearing tests on the Harbour Bridge. What foolishness is that? How can you, as a person in charge of works and engineering, with all the bridges you see falling around this world, and some built by... No. I have a lot of views about things, and I got to ensure that when I speak, it aligns with the vision of AFC. Because if you notice, I have better must come, vote AFC come September 4th. So not everything that I feel and think means I got to say. You understand? Because, I mean, in our group and party, you're allowed to say it. But since I'm getting involved in politics here, there's a level of diplomacy that is needed. And while I might have problems with some of the foreign companies that are coming into our country and what they are doing, I need to address those issues as as diplomatic as possible. Because the truth be told, at the end of the day, you still have to work with these individuals. You understand? However, maybe later down in the video I'll talk about some of the things that I'm seeing and try to put it over in a way that is somewhat diplomatic, but yet speak to the truth and the realities that do exist. All right, and I think I'm going to talk about that next. So I was making a point that how can you, as a person of works, spending so much millions of dollars behind a bridge, right, that will have to work. When I say work, and those big trucks that we get now ain't easy big trucks. I heard a rumor that in some of the countries that make these trucks, they don't even allow them on their roads anymore. I was trying to verify the information to research, but I know some other countries ban some of these trucks due to technology and braking systems and so on, but I haven't gotten a proper source that say that they stop it because of their weight and so on. But again, and Guyanese, we one of the people that if something comes for fetch a load, you understand? If it can't do triple times what it come for, ain't good. And so some of the good companies like Bedford, those guys who build those trucks know that it will have come to Guyana. Right? If anybody could overload anything, it's Guyanese. Don't worry, then clips and stuff you see with people in other countries and stuff. I'm telling you, Guyanese is it when it comes to overworking something. You understand? I know my brother get a Spacio. And those same roads where you see all those trucks and stuff sticking up and everything that is bigger. You know, he pushes that through there. You understand? Proper work those vehicles over. But my point is that you can know that such an important infrastructure, that's like a lifeline between the West, right, and the East Bank. And you're not going to test and ensure that it is safe. That doesn't speak well about management. You understand? You're putting us at risk. You understand? You're putting us at risk. And I hope that whichever government goes into power come 1st of September, and I'm trusting that you vote AFC because better must come, is that they ensure that due diligence is done to ensure that the standards and that bridge reach all these necessary standards, right, for use. But again, that just shows you the level of mediocrity that exists, right, you understand, in there. Not just planning, but the execution and evaluation of works. And that's what is leaving a bitter taste in many of Guyanese mouth, because they spend the money, they're busy doing things, but we're not satisfied with the standard and the quality in most cases. A lot of the works are being abandoned also, incomplete. I know everybody's go behind critics and stuff, and I shouldn't mention him because he might come after me, you understand? But you know, everybody attack critics about critics is one of many, you understand? Many contractors who left their work incomplete for whatever reason, right? No proper oversight. So little did I know this live is already an hour, and I haven't even get into the substance of what I really want to talk about. But I want to just let you know that AFC, I believe that AFC in its policy, right, in terms of the quality of its leader and leaders, you understand, we are the best right now on the ground, right? We are the best. I'm not saying that they're not quality in other parties, don't get me wrong, you understand, but when you're talking, if you put a checklist in which you want to evaluate, you know, strong character, you understand, good morals, you know, or ethics, you understand, integrity, I'm telling you, there's only one. There's only one. All right, there's only one. There's only one. I'm not saying that all leaders don't have integrity, but I'm talking about the full package, the full list. His ability to stay calm, and one of the things I recognize, you know, and I guess that comes from his experience as one of Guyana's best lawyer, right, is that, you know, you could pose some heated questions, you know, the kind of questions that could get you hot and get you start stuttering and stammering and stuff. But this guy would, you know, cool and calm, you know, provide you responses that you could, you know, even if it's not the best response, it is something that you could understand really, because he'll put it over in such a way to let you know what, even if I'm not the best at this or have the best knowledge about this, I'm willing to consult the people that know about these things to advise me. You understand? That is what you want in a leader. You understand? You look around, think about our president right now. How much time when he get cornered, how he operates. You understand? Comes out of character. I'm saying you all is that to let people understand that this government, right, this government is not good for this country. Because it doesn't matter how nice your home is. If people are abusing you in your home, if you're being starved of food in your home, right, because that's how Guyana is like right now, you understand? All these works being done, and we just for the sake of argument, assuming that they're of high standards and quality, you understand? The work, it looks beautiful. Not saying that we don't have let's pretend we don't have a concussion road, you understand? And all these different failures that we have. Just imagine we just have the works in the infrastructure. Just think about it for a second, right? Guyana is at a place whereby we have all these wonderful infrastructure work, but inside the home, it's a mess. No transparency, no accountability, no consultation, no justice. Marginalization, victimization. If you think I lie, I challenge any strong political supporter of the PPP You understand? To go out in your community and look for anything that is not done up to standard and give a constructive criticism and throw blame where it's rightly needed. And let for a second it sounds offensive to the ruling party and tell me what's going to be the outcome. I'm not saying you to just go do it as, for a show right now. You understand? But you know what I'm saying is true. If you only say anything that does not go with the narrative, you lose your benefits. You lose your privileges. Not only you, but even your family member. You understand? It's one of those things that, like, the other day, my brother came to me and he said, oh, you again, we in this politics thing, bro. And you cause people for, you understand? Not give it, not work with him and stuff and so on. Come on, buddy. For me, we're in mental slavery. We're in chains, circumstantial chains. That the minute you want to live free and share your views and your opinions, even though there are truths, you got to wonder if your family can get to eat. You got to wonder if you're going to get a scholarship. I'm going to tell you something. Even if everything I say here is not true, and I want you to drop it in your comments whether you believe it is true or not, or you have a different opinion, that's okay. Because the dialogue is necessary. Right? But I know somebody that suffers from a lot of paranoia, whereby they feel that, everything is out for them. You understand? Even the traffic, the air, you understand? They smell something funny, they believe somebody's after them. And I'm telling you about somebody that I know other than myself. But this government creates paranoia for a large section of Guyanese. Because when you bid for a contract and you don't get it, you're wondering if these people are really out for you, maybe you're not getting it. If you apply for a scholarship and you didn't get it, you wonder if these people see your name and just ignore you. You apply for duty free and you didn't get it, you wonder if these people see your name again and they ignored you. Any opportunity that has some government player inside or something and you would have applied for it or maybe in some form or you should have received it or get the opportunity, your mind plays that maybe even if there's just reasons why you didn't get it, I'm just saying, you live in fear, wondering if the reason you didn't get it not because you didn't reach all the criteria or just because you did not meet one criteria, which was loyalty to the PPP. And a lot of Guyanese living like that. And for that reason, this government ain't good for this country. You're creating stress in the minds of the people because we feel that the opportunities are only for those who are aligned. According to how I say it in my circle, you understand, if you're not in the vein, you understand, then there's no benefit for you. You get no oxygen, you get no air, you get no nutrients, you understand, unless you're in the vein. It's only when you're in the vein you receive a phone call that a minister is coming in the community and you should be there. It's only when you're in the vein you receive a phone call that we're sharing now dredge engines and and you should be there. It's only when you're in the vein, you understand, you get grants for business. And when you're not in the vein, oh boy, the amount of things they tell you to let you know that you can't get it. You're a public servant and all kind of things they tell you. It can't be in your husband's name, it can't be in your name, all kind of things they tell you. But when you're in the vein, just show up and you get it. So I'm saying when I think about all these things, I'm telling you that this government is not good. It's not good. Now, at this point in your life, I think it is up to you if you want to continue listening. But I'm going to just continue talking because I need to offload a lot of things about this government and tell you ain't no good, and that's why a lot of persons were gravitating towards something new, something fresh. Some people didn't care who the leaders of these new parties are. You understand? Once they show that they have a little love for the people, that's all the people wanted, because they fed up with the PPP. And I'm telling you honestly, you understand, I so much want the government to change. You understand that I basically was just looking to see who's gonna, who's gonna come and bring about the change. But trust me, at the end of the day, you gotta be a person of principle. You have to make your judgment based on substance. You have to evaluate what is the best. You see, it's a sad thing that politics becomes such a strategic thing whereby, we try to get the most votes in this direction and so on. But if we had proper laws that ensure that even if 10,000 votes go to this person, they still had a voice in the decision making. If we had laws that says that, if you got, in other words, no matter how small your party is, you had an actual voice to speak and represent the interests of your people, then everybody trying to pull votes in one direction and would not have been our primary concern. Our primary concern would ensure that we have the best quality leaders there. Because it's like, how I think about it is like this, you understand? Let's just say AFC got 30% of the votes, hypothetically, right? And that's in my utopia world or my ideal world, or a place whereby laws exist, you understand? So 30% AFC, 30% APNU, 30% PPP, and 10%, every other party. Now, notice that none of the three major parties got any more votes than the other. You follow what I'm saying? So they get your cabinet and stuff around that. Now, who's going to lead and run the country now? Something in the law, to say that, a certain percentage to ensure fair representation, you understand? Certain percentage, let's say we have 15 ministries or something like that. You understand? So, first of all four of these parties got to vote for who the president is going to be. Where it's going to come from AFC, PPP, APNU, and even the person who got 10%. Then the ministries or stuff should have some level of representation, whether in a junior capacity, right, if not a senior capacity, from all these different parties by law. You understand? I'm just putting out some hypothetical. Those who are more favored government systems and what's best and stuff, those are things for the public to get information, debate on. But I'm just saying, right, it will eliminate this winner take all kind of scenario that basically leave one section of the country behind while another section is moving ahead. I'll tell you this. Remember, my objective is to tell you that better must come. And I'm trying to tell you straight that this government ain't no good. All right? Ain't no good for this country. We already talked about the major issues, justice and transparency and accountability. Let's talk about its approach to economics. I think that's something we need to talk about. We have nice roads. We have newly built schools, right? Commend the minister for that initiative to ensure that the monies are spent to actually build schools, which could, utilize for not thousands, not hundreds, but decades, few decades. They'll last, I hope. Well, let's look at the economic policies. This government always had one approach. And now I was talking about the past 5 years. I'll be looking from since 1992 coming up. One of the things that this government do a lot is always strengthen the business sector. You understand? They always strengthen the business sector. and they have the business sector as the main driving force of the economy. And that model, and I'm begging for an explanation. I'm begging for evidence. Somebody articulate to me, is that model successful? In any very economics basically teach you that, in most economies, the biggest spend in any economy is the government. You understand? And so what the government is basically doing in its spending is, in short, they put in the majority of the monies directly into the hands of the business community, right? Whether through contracts and, for services and what's not. And their hope is that the business people now would now hire persons and provide employment for them. You understand? And keep the economy turning. And they've been trying that for over 28 years. And it has failed bitterly. Bitterly. So let me come home. There are a lot of discussions on social media and Facebook about, the wonderful things the government has done for the indigenous communities. And they give a lot of praises and stuff and so on. And that's, again, as I said, in all fairness, there are some things to thank the government for. I wouldn't deny that one bit. But what I listened and I learned, when I listened, the more I listened and I would have learned, is that a lot of these transformations that are happening in these indigenous community is not because of the government. Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. I know you give a lot of praise to the government. And I can understand if you support the government, you'll try to say things to amplify how good they are. I cannot fault anybody for doing that. But this brings me back to why I entered politics back in 2016, all right? It's because I believe that grassroots leadership, controlling your own affairs, you understand, making decisions to benefit your own community and yourself in a sense, you understand? That is what local government or local democracy is about. That's why we have, these three branches: central government, regional government, and local government. You understand? All of them having their different roles and responsibilities. So while in the municipality of Bartik or in town council, you understand, that power should be given to the council to generate its income, find ways to create jobs and whatever it needs to ensure that the people living in the area benefits. And so what you find happening in the indigenous communities is that not for the first time, because they've always been given money, even on the PPP, right? And I was doing my research on it and I recognized that when APNU came into power, there was a lot of issues about the finance. They couldn't have given account for a lot of the money, right? And that talks about bad management and stuff, right? But that's beside the point. The point is this, is that there's now given a governmental grant and stuff, so the communities have more money. They were always given money, but it had to be done through projects and stuff, and so outside the projects there, so also money is being given. And that is expected, because I said, our country has more wealth than it ever had in its entire history. And the only way anybody saw an opportunity of benefiting from the money, it got to be spent. Whether it's inflated, meaning that the cost of some good is higher than it ought to be and stuff, that's a different story by itself. But the bottom line is that the money's got to be spent. So back to these indigenous communities. So they are receiving these grants, and these different grants for different things, different projects. And what you find happening is that you're having more responsible leaders in these communities. And they're ensuring that these monies are channeled towards projects and in ways that could benefit the community. And so while you may give praise to the government to ensuring that those grants, right, they are coming in, the really and truly the growth that you're seeing and the development that you're seeing is driven by you, the people, taking charge of your own affairs. And that's why a local democracy is very important to a country, to the community. But what you find happening is from both PPP and even APNU. You understand? They want to have total dominance of power. They want to control every aspect of your life, and that is not safe. So while I say, yes, hats off to the government for providing, the grants, Really and truly, many of the transformational things that you are experiencing in different communities comes because you have good local leaders, you understand, who are now channeling those resources and ensure they utilize those resources to bring benefits to your community. I'm not talking about every now and again the government might do a major work, you understand, from, what do you call it? That's civil work. Anyhow, though, but from the central budget, they would do, I don't know, maybe a project, right, outside the community, not without the community, but definitely, they do something that they put on their budget and stuff and so on. I'm not talking about that. That could be maybe water treatment system they might set up, or maybe they might do some electrification and so on. But when you make an investment to ensure you have your own lumber yards and tractors and or whatever it is, you understand, to provide employment for the people in your community, that is you, that's praise, that's noteworthy of you, the people. And so let us not be too quick, right? Let us not be too quick to make the point that, try to say that everything that good is happening in your community is because of the government. No, it's because you, the people, are utilizing the resources more responsibly. And we're saying to you, when I look at it, I was looking at the numbers, while I feel better can be done, especially under the LCDS, right? And because, again, I said diplomacy, because I want to talk about this LCDS thing, right? But diplomacy will tell me, just be tactful in the way you talk about it, right? Because the truth be told, and this may be tactful talking about it, the truth be told is that the whole country, and this is something that people don't understand, the whole country pays for the LCDS. So for those who don't know what we're talking about, LCDS and so is that's the low carbon, or LCDF, or I think I must be pronouncing the thing wrong, but the point is that low carbon development fund or whatever it is that we receive from from Norway to protect our forests and stuff. I'm telling you that the entire country pays. And some of the persons who are impacted the most are those indigenous communities that depend on the forests for the living, whether through forestry, mining, ecotourism, whatever it is that we're going to utilize or have the possibility. Any economic activity is going to destroy the community or destroy the forests, you understand. They are being paid to preserve it. And hence, they cannot exploit it as the way that we used to do it back then, cut down trees we want and just sell. We can't even use our chainsaw and rib boards anymore. We got to get wood misers. You got to, it's all about, sustainable use of the resources and stuff and so on. So they pay us to protect our forests, and hence it therefore means that we cannot work it as we want to. And so therefore they give us some monies, and now it's up to the government to redistribute that wealth. And some of the indigenous communities are the ones who deserve a bigger bite of it. My concern is, and I want to ask anybody who's all for government and saying that things are better, they have more resources and stuff, are the resources given to you, are they in the right proportion? That's the question I ask. Is the proportion the best or close to the best, or are you being shortchanged? And then I made the point just now that the entire country pays for the LCD, the low carbon development project. Because why? I don't know if you guys could remember on the app now, right? There was banks there was a tax that we had to pay for plastic bottles, $10 or something like that, and it caused the increase of the drink price by $10 or something of the sort. I don't know if anybody can remember that. You see, this whole science, and that's what I'm trying to be diplomatic about it, this whole science about carbon footprint and so on, has a way of coming back to you, the people. You actually pay for it. So they're telling you, because you're using a plastic bottle, you have to pay for your carbon footprint. Right? You have to pay for your carbon footprint. So that simply means what? Simply means that every Guyanese currently is actually paying something on every plastic bottle or plastic item that we use. We are actually paying a tax on it. just because of that project or the whole science around the whole project. So we're paying a tax on it, every Guyanese. And the question is, how does that come back? Do that come back to you? In what form does it come back? We know for the indigenous community it goes as direct investments, but to us, how do we get that back? I don't know. That's just a question and something for us to think about. So, but to wrap up on the point is that indigenous communities that are seeing, improvements in the services that they're able to offer within the community and, and owning certain assets and so on, right? Outside the donations that are given by the government through whatever agencies, you understand? A lot of your development and growth is driven by you, the people. You understand? Having good leaders. And I'm saying that all praise is not for the government for that. You understand? Because the point is that any government that goes into power, the only way they can access the money is by giving us the money in some form or kind. You understand? So you're going to continue getting grants, even sometimes even greater, bigger grants, regardless if it's PPP, WIN, APNU, AFC, whoever goes in power, you're going to get more because we can afford to give more. But what's important, and that's what I heard when I listened, is that really and truly it is the local leaders, not the government, the local leaders that drive the change. So, that being said, come September the 1st, I'm asking you to vote for AFC. Listen to some of the policies and some of the offerings that and promises that we are making. And since I mentioned promise, it triggers another thought. You see, we need to recognize that every decision we make to trust somebody is always based on a promise. And so I'm listening to all the rhetoric, and all the different things. They can't promise me nothing. You understand? When you promise they're coming with a gain. And I'm asking myself, wait man, you actually start on to work without being paid with the promise that you're going to get paid. So you have to get the promise. You understand? You jump in a bus with a promise of the man take you to your destination. You have to walk on a promise. The point is, every decision where you have to trust somebody to deliver something or do something or carry something, it's always based on a promise. When you go to the altar, it's based on a promise. You understand? Even to choose your companion, you even have to go get married yet. You understand? It's a promise. It's a promise. That's what it is. So we can't come and pretend that these elections time you don't listen to promises. However, when it comes to these elections time, it is always good to look at somebody's track record and compare to the promises they are making. And I'm saying to you, if you consider what we would have received over the past 5 years from PPP government, and if they claim that this was their manifesto, 95% accomplished, then those promises were weak in the first place. I want us that to sink in. If these last 5 years is 95% of what the PPP would have promised in their manifesto in 2020, then those promises were weak in the first place. It therefore means that we did not make our choice based on their promises. Because if they claim success and things are so broken in this country and they would have accomplished their manifesto, then something wrong. Let's look at some areas. Let's first start off with housing. PPP claimed that they would have given out 55,000 or 50,000 house lots, which is commendable. However, the prices people got to pay for the house lot in this market that is highly inflated, you see everything is connected. It's a struggle for people to find that 500,000, 1.2 million, or whatever it is for a house lot. Secondly, in many of the areas, you understand, the infrastructure development is moving at a slow pace or a no pace. So what they did, they had to show people virtual house lots just to make them feel that, you know, hey, we would have promised you that you have a house lot. We have given you a paper. Yes, you can get lot number 700, but you know what? The site is not developed as yet. You know, we don't have the infrastructure works done, but you already pay us your $500,000. I'm just using it one of the lower figures. You understand? And we don't have it yet to give it to you. And that person's borrowed that money. If you were like me, I can remember when I had to get my house lot, I had to liquidate my business in order to get it done because it was a one-stop shop. I had to get the money, bop, and I made it happen. I borrowed some and I liquidate and I got mine. You understand? People sacrifice a lot to raise $500,000 to put towards something. And yet, many of those areas are not developed yet. However, ironically, we have in some areas it's more easy to develop than others. You have the government pumping millions of dollars to building houses, not for the poor, the underprivileged, those who are squatting. No, but for young professionals. Come on, come on. If the young professionals are being paid sufficiently, if you give them a piece of house lot, those young professionals could choose the design and do whatever it is they want on the land. What you got to build house for young professionals for? So you're spending billions of dollars to build houses for young professionals. I'm saying when it is done, it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you neglect to pump those monies to develop those schemes or those areas at a rapid rate. So that persons, when they give you the 500,000, within short moment, they could start working towards building. But no, people paid and got to wait a whole year and more before they could even see or get access to the lands to start building. Now, when you ask persons to pay such exorbitant prices, because that's what I consider to be, because you understand, cost of living is nothing easy in this country. Just like today alone, I had to get an item from Georgetown to Bartico. And just to get the taxi from Georgetown to Perico, you understand, the lowest and somebody wants is 10,000. And I'm telling you this, 5 years ago, with fuel prices at the same price that it is right now, being quite factual, and I want to thank the government for that. That's what I say. I'll thank them for ensuring that the gas prices did not go out of control. That is one thing I could say without any favor. Who vex. I thank the government for maintaining good gas price. And I know they're going to take this out of the life and say that I said it. You understand? Right? So as I said, I can't be giving and taking all the time because it's so upsetting. You understand? All fairness. But they maintain the gas price. But my point is this. You would have maintained the fuel prices. But yet, the cost of moving from Perico, from Georgetown to Perico, has doubled. Has doubled. I used to pay 5,000 on taxi straight to Perico. Now people want 10. I was surprised the other day you had to pay 7,000 to get to Wheaton Hoop. So, again, just coming back to the point I'm making, the government, though they would have allocated on paper 50,000 house lots, those persons have not received. Those who would have received are living in swamps. And you run social media, you'll see it. So they failed. The low-income homes that they built, I saw on one video live, you understand that a lot of people who are living in it are not Guyanese, so we didn't benefit. So, again, as I said, if the promises of PPP 5 years ago are 95% fulfilled. And this is what we get. Therefore means the promises were not good at all. You understand? Because I can't believe it is accomplished, and this is what we get. Moving from housing, let's talk about jobs. I can't remember the number. I don't know if the number I'm thinking is in Bartica, but I think what 2,000 part-time workers, 10-day workers. So for 5 years, you have persons, it might be less because maybe the project didn't start at the beginning, right? So give and take. For 5 years, you would have 2,000 persons in Bartica working for $40,000 for half of a month of work based on how public servants usually work. No systems in place to move those persons from part-time to full-time. No job creations that will allow these people, because a lot of times, I mean, you guys 4,000, that's all you really getting as your main stuff and so on. It's very difficult sometimes for you to let it go and say they're going to stand the risk of going somewhere else where there's no security. So you have a lot of persons stuck because they haven't just enough, not even to properly survive. But the fear of having nothing keeps them there for 4 years, in all fairness. Because I don't think it started at the beginning of the last 5 years. And then what you do, you abuse and use those persons. Anytime you have gatherings and stuff, they got to show up. Right? It's threats. And that's a fact. And you're going to tell me that PPP is good for this country? Come on, man. Come on, man. We're talking about job creation. And you recognize that so many of our nurses, medical people, they flee in this country, going off to seek better opportunities in different parts of the world, that things get so bad. And that we seeking to bring in a whole lot of foreigners that don't even speak our language. Don't even speak our language. We go to the hospital, we tell them what, oh boys, hell to explain to them what you're suffering from. And then when they give you certain diagnosis, it's very questionable, because sometimes if you have something that you're chronic with and you're costing, you know what's supposed to happen, and you hear the advice you get it. But it is really sickening. We opened some new quarries. And it's like if the indenture system has started again. And these whole quarries, no Guyanese are there, or hardly have Guyanese. It's sheer, I'm using the word foreigners loose, because I don't know the identity of the people that are there. And I don't believe there is a labor shortage really in Guyana. What is happening in Guyana is because the government has done nothing to control the cost of living, did nothing to ensure that persons' salaries, both in public and to influence private sector, to ensure that those salaries are in keeping with the rate of inflation in the country. So you find that persons cannot leave Georgetown and come and work in Batavia, you understand, for 130 or 140,000. Even in the marketing and seeking for these jobs, especially for these firms here, you don't even hear what are really the true benefits of coming. You understand? People don't know if they leave in Georgetown to come to a place where they're going to have housing and all the necessities and stuff. They just say, okay, I don't even, matter of fact, they haven't even heard it properly recruit. There's not even a proper recruitment service. But the point is, you can't have Guyanese coming and work for those small pittance, and at the same time, you're bringing in foreigners and you're giving them housing, transportation and all the necessities to make life comfortable, and paying them even or even offering them more than you actually paying your own Guyanese. And that is the reality in our country. And that's because of poor policies by our government. Failure to manage the economy. Failure to control inflation. Besides fuel, controlling fuel prices, that's the only thing that they try to control. And to a less degree, they try to bully the people in transportation industry to keep the prices level. And I'm talking about the speedboats and to some extent the buses. All in those two areas, they did absolutely nothing. If they did something, I want you to come on this live or in the comment section and share what you know. But I'm just trying to be honest and fair in my assessment of things. As I said, this live, is almost on 2 hours already, and it is no longer focused and targeted to any specific issues, but I'm going to just speak as I'm impressed. I'll try my best to be fair and give a fair assessment looking at things from all angles. But my point is that PPP, the People Progressive Party, has failed this country in a time when there is abundance. For the first time in our history, right, there is an abundance of wealth. And that is under this, and that is under the conditions currently that they have done a poor job in managing our non-oil economy. If they did a good job, prove it. Besides creating a consortium to open some lands up in Berbice to farm with them legumes, right? What other noteworthy agriculture project that this government really on that is bringing real wealth to the people? They haven't brought anything fresh. You understand? Show me where there's a boom of some new agro processing or stuff, and so that is bringing in, creating a lot of jobs and new wealth for people. There's nothing new. What we have was what was there. And I don't know what level of support, honestly, because why? Again, when it comes to information sharing, this government is weak and poor when it comes to that. We have press conferences every week, you understand, but yet the data and information is not in the public sphere for us to look at. So if there are good things going on, we don't know because the information is on the wraps. Who knows knows. So I could only talk from what I'm aware of. But show me the new industry that is non-oil, that is popping. People were trying with tourism since before COVID, and then they continued without COVID and stuff and so on. But where is the transformation when it comes to tourism in any part of this country? What infrastructure that you would have guided through direct investment or through investors to enhance tourism in the country? Okay, I just remember, you would have made the seawalls a little nicer. Not a little nicer, real nicer. All right? And that's one thing I must commend you for that, because you would have continued the work that was done, that started, right, under the AFC and APNU coalition, or the APNU AFC coalition to be correct. You understand? And you would have followed suit. But again, as I said to you, what is quite evident is that you spend money, you understand? And the way you could spend the money, it got to go into projects. But here we come again. When we say something good, we got to take away from it, because what? In doing that, you displace people who are making a living. You understand? Make a living. And what you did, you brought persons who never had an investment. People who never had an investment in seawall business. Again, marginalizing certain people. You give opportunities to the guys who already have wealth. And the guys who are there hustling all the years, you understand, you squeeze them off because you want the place to look really nice and organized. And you give your big fancy buildings and spaces to new individuals, new franchises. And the people who are there, doing their thing for all the years, they got pushed aside. So I was making the point that you did nothing good for job creation. You manage the economy terribly, all right? And for that reason, I believe that you do not deserve a second chance or a second term. You understand? You don't deserve a second term. Somebody else needs the opportunity with the resources that we're currently having from oil. You understand? Somebody who who have the non-oil sector in their hearts and minds and have good policies to make it grow. Right? Those are the people who need the opportunity to rule now, not you. You had your chance, and for me, you blew it. If persons feel you didn't blow it, I want you to share. So I'm going to pause my live just for a second in the volume. Yeah, sorry about that. So I was basically saying there just now that when you look at it, they would have failed when it comes to creating jobs, failed at keeping our skilled workers. And when I think about that, I think about the teachers. Yes, because I am one. For 75 days, and that is one of the biggest failures of this government, for 75 days, they would have kept the teachers, the country, at a standstill as it pertains to education. To prove what point? I don't know. Nobody can convince, maybe you can, but I challenge you to convince me. Because I was there as part of the negotiation process between the Guyana Teachers Union and the Ministry of Education. And we saw the back and forth from the courts and everything. And on a day like today, they would have failed to carry the court order to reinstate the deduction of the dues. You understand? They would not have honored that, right? Many aspects of the agreement they have not yet fulfilled. And that agreement in itself is even incomplete because there were things that were not even finished negotiating and that agreement was signed. And it is quite evident now by the public utterance of the then GTU president that, you understand, his allegiance were more towards PPP rather than the teachers. Because if you want a little insight to things, I will say this much, and I'll end it there. Right? Because I don't want to sway public opinion, because GTU is an organization and we got to find ways to deal with things in-house, you understand? So I don't want to sway opinions too much on the issue, and I just deal with things. I don't want to add any bias and stuff, But I'm telling you this, throughout that negotiation process, there was no time, you understand, that as a negotiating team that we actually said, you know what, these negotiations is not going any direction, things are at a standstill, we're not getting any way forward, maybe we should compromise and take this and take that. Never had such a discussion, you understand? But suddenly out of the blues, the president took upon himself to carry a position to the General Council and by all evidence misled them, right? And the General Council made a decision, even when it was challenged after, right? There were ways for the UN to rescue itself from the position, but no effort was made to do that. And against all advice and counsel and stuff, he went ahead and signed that agreement. You understand? So putting that aside, it is quite evident now where his allegiance is. Because see, this was the guy that was saying that, we're having so much challenges as teachers and stuff. And then he went on a political campaign and said, these are the most transformative years in education. Come on. Transformative years. And you have the no left behind policy that came out back in maybe in 2007. You understand that it's wreaking havoc on our society. Not only that students are dropping out, You understand? But I asked myself the question, what is the extrinsic? In other words, what is the external motivation does a child have for success when they come to secondary school? What, yo, back in the days, the external motivation was, I don't want to repeat no class. I've seen first students come and reach me here, and I gotta say, repeat. You understand? But now, whether you work hard or stuff, you're coming out of the system. This system is failing this country, creating a more broken society because a lot of persons just come out because they were never challenged in school, never had a reason to fight, you understand, to achieve success. Besides maybe your parents talking to you now and again and stuff and so on, there was nothing external pushing you. It's only those who have a deep interest for learning and the parents are behind them are the ones who kind of come out successful. And then you're going to go up on the stage and holler about transformative years. We sat down and do a budget on what it takes to be a family of four, living on a teacher's salary. And when we did the numbers, teachers needed like 61%, without exaggeration. 61% more is what we needed in our salaries. And that's why, but we, in the best interest, we went to the government and said, look, we need 30, give us between 30 to 35%. Let us start negotiating there. And over time, you could, you increase it. Because we would have already forfeit 3 years, whereby you gave us nothing that we would have asked for. You understand? And and this is what we need right now based on cost of living. I can remember giving one of the officers a copy of a budget from Upper Maz. And when he looked at it, he said, yes, this is what it really takes to live in these areas. They needed like 112% in comparison to the coastland. And the then president of GTU, knew all this, and then could turn around and say, hey, these were transformative years. Something. Well, everybody could kind of understand what's wrong. We have some serious issues with teachers and training. And I want to tell you, because I've been in the profession for over 20 plus years, right? And they say when to talk as a professional, you don't say 20 plus years. I've been in the profession for 2 decades, right? So I've been in the profession for 2 decades. And I can remember my entry into the profession and how it was based on what, the persons who entered before me told me and stuff and so on. So what happened, this is like, you come in and you join as a pupil teacher, right? You might work for 1 year, sometimes 2 years, some people even 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And then because training was such a slow process, you go off and you train. But when training became a little bit more regular, they used to tell you if you join the profession, you got to wait 2 years or within 18 months, you go off and train. And showing that policy changed because they want teachers to be trained. What this used to do was, one, it used to allow teachers to, harness their craft. You understand? Get a little stronger in methodology, get a little stronger in being mature and responsible, get a little stronger, to not recognize if this is a profession that you really like or you want. Right? That was some of the benefits of being a teacher, especially when you started off. And then you would have gone to college, and in most cases, you had high pass rate. Just maybe maths was a problem for most teachers. And that might be the only thing that might be a hindrance to them. But every other thing, teachers would have passed and do well, methodology and so on. They pass those courses and stuff and so on, teaching practice and so on. And the teachers would usually excel. And when they come back to the profession, there was noticeable high quality. That's how it was in the past. Now, because Guyana is so obsessed in reaching UN goals and training, you could apply for teaching tomorrow, literally tomorrow. They accept you the next day. And one day, within 3 days, they have you in CPC. You haven't even decided if this is the profession that you really want for yourself. You haven't even learned how to teach. But hear what? You're busy with academic studies and teaching at the same time. So what's happening? You're not growing and developing proper teaching practices and techniques because you're overwhelmed trying to achieve the academics. And so those children suffer for the 2 years while you trying to harness your academic pursuit or get your academic certification, and you not really developing the best practices and the know-hows and how to, to teach and manage classrooms and manage students and all the things that goes with teaching. You even learn how to organize your work when you have your time, because you never had time. You're always battling between academic classes for yourself plus teaching. And what that thing has done in such a short time, and you ask any senior teacher, we have a lot of young people, yes, you're glad that they would have attained their certification, but they have not yet learned the art or mastered the craft or mastered the patience, the mannerism, the confidence, to become effective teachers. So while we go around boasting that we are 90% trained, which is good for world statistics, you have a lot of teachers in the classroom because of how the system has been forcing them to become, use an analogy, please don't take it wrong, right? Because a mango is a good fruit. I love mangoes. But they actually force you to become like a force-ripe mango. And you know how a force-ripe mango tastes. And please, this is me just generalizing. I'm not basically identifying any particular individual and stuff, but you go around, let the data, go and do the research. Get feedback from senior teachers, head teachers, and deputies of schools. What's going on in the system? So more trained teachers doesn't necessarily means more effective teaching practice or execution. So again, we're doing good things on one hand, providing training, making it accessible, yes, online training and so on. But the way that we're doing it, you understand, rather than bringing benefit to the organizations, they are not. And since I talk about teachers, let me talk about nurses. Now, again, this life I didn't have an end time for the life, and that's the problem right there. But I'm using the opportunity to tell you that this government PPP is not good for this country. And if there's anything that I said here that does not hold water, share in the comments. I want you to say something. You understand? Point me in the right direction. It's not that in life it says not what you do, but it's how you do it. And that is what is fundamentally wrong. They're more interested in the praise of numbers than to evaluate the effectiveness of what they're doing and how they're doing it. Notice I didn't talk about all the different breakdowns at CPC and so on, and grades and all those things. It's a different conversation. You guys heard enough about that. But nurses, so now. This is my ignorance, I guess, but I always know that there were like two classes of nurses. Honestly, that's all I knew, right? There was the registered nurse, which would have the different categories, midwife and maybe anesthesiast and all the different specialization. And they have nurses that were not registered, meaning that I think they were nurses aid. Right? Those were the two classes. Now, rather than, put it this way, and this is what I observe, they have another category that is lower than the nurse's aid. I think it's the nurse's aid assistant or something they cert. My wife is not around to tell me what's the name of the other category. that is lower than the two classes that I know. So you have the registered nurses at the top, and you have the nurses 8 below working along with them, right? So the registered nurse, they do supervision and stuff, they are the big ones, the big boys and girls, so to speak, right? And the others, they do, bed duties and stuff and so on and so on. Now they have another category now that they would have implemented. Maybe it was always there, but it was never emphasized like the way it is right now. So now they're training these people that are under these staff. Now these are students. This is my problem with it. For one, you have students who would have failed mathematics, and that's the only reason why they are not doing the registered nurse program, or the second category of nurses. And you take a whole bunch of these students who maybe just fail maths, rather than offer them a gateway into registered nursing, whereby the training and stuff is more specialized and rigid and stuff. You bring these people as like real junior staff. One, they're working for less salary, so you're keeping them economically challenged. Two, it creates another ranking system within the profession. And if you know what's going on, you go visit the hospital. You understand? They are looked down upon by the other ranks above them. You might say that's not fair, that's not the government's fault. But the thing is, you would have created an environment for that. When many of these persons that you have working below there could have been a rank up or two if they were just given an opportunity, you understand, as another part of entry into the registered nursing part, or the nurses aid, or nurses aid and nurses assistants. I get to mix between who's who. You understand? You're robbing these young people of opportunity of earning. You're robbing them. You're giving them unnecessary challenges because they're not seen as equals in the workspace. Because one, their training, is not fully, rounded and stuff. So they might not have knowledge like the rest and stuff, and they might make mistakes, and you're creating division on the workforce. So these things come back to policy. And so when you look at healthcare, this government has failed. You can't come and tell me about 3-4 different new hospitals you build. You understand? And the ones that are here currently lack a proper working X-ray, lack CT scan, lack dialysis machines, lack a surgeon, lack a bone specialist, lack a dermatologist, ophthalmologist, and the list goes on. I'm talking about right here in Bartico. How can you really truly call that progress? How can you really call it transformative? And the thing is, in Bartico, we know about having these personnels. We know about having these equipment. No maintenance. Nothing was done to keep those specialists. I don't know. I honestly want to believe that when I hear my friends and so on that supports the government, talk about the transformation that happened under this government, and they sometimes say that I'm blind, and sometimes I just want to convince myself, because sometimes you feel so alone sometimes when you're in a circle and like everybody's running in a certain direction, but and you are not, and like you asking yourself, like, is it something really wrong with you? Maybe are you, what really is keeping you from being with the crowd? But what these elections is showing to us is that I'm not alone. A lot of Guyanese are fed up. And that's why they gravitate to any sign of hope. That's why a lot of them run behind the wind. But today I'm saying, if you're behind the wind, I want to tell you that AFC is still in this race. Better must come. You understand? There's no better leader. There's no better group right now that has the policies, have the leader with the what must I say, The presidential characteristics, meaning the ability to speak, articulate, a man that you could reach and talk to, down to the earth, a man that believes in justice and fairness, you understand? A man who is visionary in his thinking and in his expectation for this country, you understand? They can get, tick all the boxes. I gotta be careful because I don't want to make a comparison between the different persons and what, but I'm saying you yourself could sit down and look at it and recognize that Mr. Nigel Hughes is a man of standard, a man of quality, and he's part of an organization that is not of the old school. Yes, we were a part as a junior partner in a coalition, you understand? And I know it is fair criticism that more could have been done by AFC to stand against any wrongdoings or things that were not being done by their partner. That's fair criticism. But I'm telling you right now, AFC is under new leadership. You understand? New direction under persons who can think independently and act for what is right. You understand? Owe no favors to nobody. So I'm telling you that you can have confidence that if you put your X next to the key, you have strong representatives. You have visionary leadership and policy. I know I was to talk about AFC policy in this video. I think that's one of the things when I finish this video, I'm gonna look back and say, you know what? I gotta see more about what AFC gonna do and so on. But maybe when I finish this little talk and so on, this is not a little talk, it's 2 hours already, right? But the point is, when I finish this conversation, the point remains that I'm going to take some time and talk about what AFC has to offer specifically. I don't need to talk about the failings of the PPP because after all, you would have seen it for yourself, you would have heard it from me, and therefore, you know, they've been weighing the balance and found one thing as far as I'm concerned. And that's a hard pill to swallow if you're a supporter of them, but you got to face the facts and face the truth. You understand? Face the facts and face the truth. So, you know, when you look at health, this government has failed miserably. Imagine to do a dialysis. A lot of people are coming down with kidney problems, right? And to do dialysis, it's $15,000 per session, and sometimes you have to do 3 sessions depending on, you know. And I think the government gave us $600,000 voucher, right? $600,000 voucher for the year. I don't know if it's for the year or it's a one-time thing. I'm not too sure. Right? But you do the math, right? It's not sufficient for a lot of persons. And this brings me back to the government's policy. And this one here, I'm going to talk about it now. I don't know, I'm not saying this is an AFC position, but there's a way I look at it. And that's the beauty about AFC. You could say what you have to say, you know, without being afraid too much. You understand? But if I think this way, it's my duty to sell this to AFC, and I know that proper policy is going to be taken, but nobody's going to talk about it. Look, some people, I see people boasting up, oh boy, toll-free crossing of all the major bridges in the country. And some of us are happy. Listen to me out. Give me a chance. Let me explain. And this is a serious one, and it's a touchy subject, and I know that whoever goes into power would be afraid to change that policy because, you know, people say, like, you know, you're cutting progress, but let's think about it rationally. Just give me the opportunity to just talk about it. All right. Because just in case I'm going to cut this out and post it and stuff and so on, I don't know if I'm going to have time to do it, but at least let me say it properly. Everything that you do, as much as possible, must be sustainable. You're talking about forestry, it must be sustainable. Education, well, in Guyana, it's not so much about sustainable because in our constitution, it has to be given free and stuff, so the government got to spend. Healthcare, it doesn't have to be sustainable because that is something the government got to spend its resources by. But whatever the government does, follow me carefully, follow me. How are these things sustained? Not directly by health. In other words, the government is not supposed to charging you for health care in this country to say that it must be sustained. They're not supposed to be charging you for education so that it could be sustained. The government has other things that they could charge so that they could sustain health and sustain education. I hope you're getting the point. So, I just talk about dialysis. And how it's a burden on those who need it often to find that money to get that treatment. But at the same time, the government has a system for a number of years that is collecting revenue. For any one man, and I could be wrong, I'm just holding hypothetical figures. I don't travel often, but you might know. But when I look at it, the average user of the Demerara Harbour Bridge, and just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to use the Demerara Harbour Bridge as the only reference. The average user of the Demerara Harbour Bridge crosses that bridge maybe once or twice per day. I'm not talking about those who have trucks that carrying, doing business. I'm not talking about those who have minibus that is, running the routes. I'm talking about for those who are private and they have their own cars or motorcycle, you understand? Or Jeep or whatever it is, you usually cross that bridge maybe once or twice. I could hardly imagine the reasons for you going more than once and twice because the traffic is so steep in the tongue. I don't see you running back and forth over that bridge. You understand? There's a lot of patience if you do that. So the point I'm getting is that the average person would spend approximately $200, for the sake of simplicity, $200 a day. And if they travel the bridge 5 days a week, that's how much? 2 5 10. That's $1,000 a week. And therefore, if it's $1,000 a week and they travel for a whole month, that is $4,000 per month. And trust me, it could be half of that for most persons. But I just be giving, what I believe is a nice mid-range way of thinking. So the government will be raising like about $4,000. You're going to be saving like $4,000 a month. For most people, I think it's going to be $2,000. Okay, so you have $2,000 more in your pocket. The bridge for maintenance, and now we're building a new bridge, we're talking about paying back a loan. Maintenance, understand people is crashing to the bridge and stuff, you gotta find money to fix it. Bridge maintenance, paying workers, blah, 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 blah. I don't know how they used to use the revenues earned, right? Though it seems small as a collective based on the thousands of vehicles that pass. Let's say it was about $30 million. Let's say it's about $30 million per month they used to make. You understand? Which when you think about it, it is far more than that, right? Because if one person is 4,000, you imagine if 10,000 persons passes how much, right? So just say they used to make like $30 million per month. They're no longer making that. But yet they still have to maintain the bridge. Yet this, which includes paying workers and wherever work's got to be done. And just now shortly, they're going to start paying back a loan if they have not started paying back a loan on the new bridge. Where is this revenue coming from? The bridge is not generating it. So therefore means that they got to take it from somewhere else. Wherever that somewhere else is, whether it's from gold, whether it's from oil, wherever it is, my point is this. Health and education do not earn money for the government. The government got to take money from one area and pump it into health and education. And though you might be saving a $2,000 or a $4,000, depends how you look at it, when the month comes, ask yourself, why is it that you have to pay so much to get simple dialysis to keep you alive? Why is it when somebody gets chronically sick, they got to be begging like a dog to raise a $5 million to go overseas to get treatment? Not even the government has come and help out in full. My point is this, that if they had continued to collect the revenues to pay your loan, or might not be able to pay all, but you understand, pay your loan, pay to repairs and stuff and whatever it is, the revenue that now got to contribute towards loan and maintenance could have been pushed into the health sector and the education sector because it is needed, because that is life. That is life. Person die because they can't get a heart treatment. Person die because they can't go remove a tumor. A person run blind because they can't remove a little something over the eye. Because it is not in the health system doesn't have it available, and nobody is contributing to help you to go overseas and get the attention that you need. And I'm saying that even though it seemed nice you may get in 2000, I'm saying your friends and your family, you understand, sometimes are losing their life because the savings that they would have gotten from continuing to collect a toll could have gone into those sectors, those non-productive sectors, such as health and education, and even could stem into law enforcement. Oh boy, brings me to another big point. You see, I tell you, this government has failed. The other day when they had the protests over Miss Adriana Young, and I know there were a few crazy things that were going on and stuff, and some persons, some elements, you understand, abuse the whole situation to, carry out criminal actions. I was so embarrassed that our country, first thing, there was this video with these police with a little ply. You understand? Running, pie, shooting like that, and then all they do something, run back. That was the first embarrassment. Under a state of emergency, so to speak, and so on. Then little firearm, you get police going into to face criminals, buddy. Or whoever they were facing. Forgive me, because I don't know who they were running behind. But I guess it was criminal actions. Right? Illegal or wrong actions. Then, for add more insult to injury, you had to bring in sheriff, a private security company, to give support and backup to law enforcement. Huh? Come on. My point coming back to the bridge and the toll. The monies now that you got to spend now to maintain the bridge and to pay back the loan for the bridge could have gone into these non-productive sectors, which is integral or important for the survival of Guyanese. So again, I said, any government that comes after going to find it hard to turn it back. But I hope I set the stage for you to understand that it is not the best decision. It is the best decision when all those other areas are covered. And maybe the argument can be made that we have enough resources to cover those areas, but again, maybe there's corruption and all these things. I tell you, the corruption is so deep. You understand that it robs us of the benefit of our nation's wealth. And for that reason, people, we gotta go. Better must come. Come 1st of September. Don't forget, AFC is where you gotta vote. I know in life sometimes you just gotta stop sometimes. But again, what I like about these live, you could go as long as you want and stuff. And I know people won't watch all of it. Right? I know you won't watch all of it. For those who stay and watch, I compliment you for your patience and stuff. I know we live in a time where people just want to have, short, quick, to the point and so on. But, I have to speak as a testimony. I could say all these things in shorter forms and so on. Maybe it might be more impactful and stuff, but the record must record that I would have spoken to you, the people of Guyana, and let you know that AFC is your best option. Maybe in this video I have not given you all the details why as yet. I actually had another plan. I have a video loaded that I want us to watch together. Alright? Maybe I'm gonna even do it too. And react to it and so on. But the point is that this government has failed in every single area. Every single area. So I don't know what transformative things people boast about, but I haven't seen it in Bartica especially. Absolutely nothing they would have completed or accomplished really. All right, in all fairness. There's a road in Dark Point that is nice concrete. Yes, that wasn't there like that before, you understand? Right? And that is a good infrastructure. Give them hats off for that. I haven't traversed it in a good while, but I think it will hold up because it's not used by a lot of heavy duty traffic and stuff and so it's supposed to be good. Right? Bartica-Patara Road from 3 miles to 4 miles, that was one of the worst patch of road in a civilized environment. And the sad thing about it, people had to protest under this government for it to fix. And the government had to go, had 2 budgets and it wasn't even in the budget. Had to do a supplemental to get it done. And it was done. So it continued the work that Apno FC started from Airstrip to 4 miles. I don't want to compare standards and stuff on that again. Again, there's limited oversight of everything, and so you get what you get. But it's not as bad as the Concussion Road that I would have. Let me tell you about the Concussion Road, and this I think I'll close with this, right, to show you the feelings. And until you come 1st of September, you need to vote for AFC, right? So I'll tell you this with the Concussion Road. So, this was December. So December, last year, my giving birth to my last child, my wife, right? So we had to take the ambulance to Georgetown, right? Because she had some complications and so on. So just my wife, a nurse, and the captain on a speedboat. We left Bartica full speed. Hey, that was a nice boat ride. You understand? We bounced about 3 times based on waves produced by other boats and stuff, and we reached Preco. We jump in the taxi. Yeah, we going down, you understand, West Coast, you understand? And then, suddenly, this ambulance bouncing. You understand? And this how rating your hold on, your life you want to going on, you understand? And this is how this thing going. I said, what's this? And I could hardly see out the window and stuff, and so I can't get the thing. Wait, this is the new Scorenard, I think it is what? Scorenard or something that it is pronounced, right? Highway. That was the roughest piece of ride in the whole journey. I had to travel from Bartica to Perico. And I had no bounce up like I had on the road. So when I heard the guy, Rubio, talk about the Concussion Road, I could have related. You understand? I don't know what they did there. I don't know what. Alright? But again, generally when this government does things, the standard is not good because there's little oversight, right? There's little quality assurance. People are not interested in quality. People seem to be more interested in the kickbacks that they receive, which is a fact, right? That's how this country has become, and we lose out. We lose out. And I don't know if I give enough reasons, but there's always more. The more I talk every year, you just name a sector, and I show you how this government failed. You understand? Fail. And please, these are not shades that the government is not here for Ali alone. You understand? I don't want to talk about him right now because that'll take a whole lot of time. You understand? Right? But the buck stops with him because as the leader of the country, he needs to ensure that wherever there is a gap, he got to fill it. You understand? Wherever there's a weakness, you got to find a way to strengthen it. Right? But the whole governance is they're managing a corrupt system and network that fail you and I as the people. I want to thank you for your time that you would have taken to sit down and listen. Right? I strongly believe that come the 1st of September, there are those who understand that good leaders must have integrity. Good leaders must have integrity. Right? You need to ensure that you come out and vote. So, don't say that you don't you don't care about voting, because the truth remains that whether you vote or you vote not, you got to work. That's not what they say. But the truth be told, who rules your country or runs your country depends if you work for the same output. Because you can remember when you used to work for $5,000, you used to make ends meet, right? Now you're working for 7 and 10, and you're still struggling to make ends meet. I'm telling you, the consequence of your government, those who control and the push and pull factors of the country, get you working harder for seemingly more money and less value. So don't be naive and say to yourself, I'm not voting. You need to pick a team, pick a group of individuals you feel that could best represent your interests, and you got to base it on principle, not just following the crowd. You understand? Integrity. Integrity. This is just one attribute of the man Nigel use. I don't know what you think about me, but I'm running as a candidate for region number 10. When we region number 10, region number 7, all right, I don't know 10 in my head anyhow though. All right, I'm running as a candidate region number 7. And one of the things that you got to understand that when you go into a vote, on that day you vote for regional representation and central, right, or general election. So it's both regional and general election. So you have to vote 2 places, right? You know, you must be smart about it. You know, sometimes you might want a certain government, but then, you know, locally you might not want a certain set of leaders, right? A certain set of candidates to represent you. And so you could put your vote differently for a different party of your choice too. That's always an option. You understand? You know, for region, it's good to have I'll personally say that, you know, it's always good to have a good correlation between your regional, all right, and your general, right? But trust me, when local government comes, if you could find people who are not have any political loyalties to any of the big parties, you understand, or groups that are outside of them, you support them, because that's where you're going to receive greater benefit. Because if you go listen to the mayor now, let the mayor tell you the struggles, because I know that he has ideas and things he wants to do, but then because he's part of the bigger organization, they tell him what to do. I might not always be in the best interest for you and I. You understand? So let us be smart about elections. You know, listen, do your research. I'm gonna see how I could maybe sit down and spend some time and cut up and take out some of these parts of these videos and send it out as a snapshot, because I know people can't listen to all this thing I talk. I talk for almost 2.5 hours there. And the primary thing I want you to understand is that AFC is the best party right now in this race, because we have our constitution is not the word I want to use. Ethos, no, that's not the word I want to use. How am I searching for the word now? The word didn't come, but the point is that what the party stands for and the leader that we have running the party, you understand, for the first time I feel, you know, that the two work hand in hand, which is good for AFC. I know it's good for Guyana, right? Because the AFC see themselves as a liberal party that believes in fairness, ensuring that we have good policies. You understand? If you look at some of the ministries that the AFC would have managed under their care, they weren't perfect, right? But generally, you understand, the decisions were always guided by research and policies and feasibility studies. That's why when this government came into power, you understand, they had so many documents with the feasibility studies for many of the projects they were executing. You understand? Because they do the groundwork to ensure when it is done, you're getting the best. You understand? Bardica, I don't know how people, see, I'm supposed to finish this video now, but I don't know how people could come to Bardica and boast about anything. It's a shame. You understand? So besides the 2 roads that I've mentioned, they would have fixed that which was broken, and they would have put something that was not there. Nothing else. Everything else. Nothing else. Light, nothing. Water, nothing. New scheme? Okay, they're building a new scheme right now. All right. However, the 5-mile scheme, which was there since 2012, is still incomplete. Build a new scheme. You understand? And the scheme that was before there, nothing. The drains are still incomplete. You understand? You don't know the drainage network is supposed to be running in that place. You follow? The roads is still less than 1 inch thick. You understand that grass is growing through. They don't even get proper water supply. I guess they're working on something right now. But that's another story. But they haven't done anything for region number 7 or Bartica more specifically. They're boasting about the studying. I'm thankful that it's completed, but it was working. They were working on it before the government change. I don't know what happened when the change of government happened. There's another story who have information they could share. You understand? It took 5 years to finish out that one side. Has no building on it. Just to get a platform for offloading and unloading. Took 5 years to get that done. I don't know if there's anything to boast about, but I'm thankful that it's finished. And I know it's going to be, I can't say that at ease, because the truth be told is that the ferry is still the ferry. Right? I don't know when the road to Goshen is going to finish and we're able to cross more quickly or so on. But, I mean, what else can they talk about? The Barca Secondary, the other day, they opened up these centers. Those centers were completed almost since 2020 or 2021. And they couldn't bring this thing to closure, if you understand, for over 5 years or 4 years. Couldn't bring the building to closure. You understand? But I'm thankful that they rush and ensure everything is finished in time for elections. Elections always bring good things for you, but we cannot just define our whole life meaning and future based on one moment in time. You look at the sum of the time spent. You understand? You don't see a partner, life partner, somebody you look admiring, you understand, behaving really unruly all the days of their life, and because one day they brought you flowers, you say, I love you, I'm gonna marry you. No, it don't work like that. You understand? You look at the sum of the matter and decide if you could live with certain things, or or maybe this is not the person. And for me, when I look at the sum of all of the things that PPP would have done, they have not moved this country in any direction. You understand? They have not. You understand? We are worse off. And as I said, this video is supposed to finish, but I'm saying, I even start speaking about the foreign investors that are coming into our country, you understand, and exploiting our resources, one. Two, in some cases underpaying us for the same value, to a different payment that they pay the people that they bring in by foreign means. And you start talking about them taking all the businesses that we the ones who's supposed to be actually doing it. You understand? Because you can't go in their country and open a business just like that. But they come and open a business in us and pushing our small man out of business. I ain't call no names. And you tell me that you're running a good business down here, a good shop. Something wrong, man. Something wrong. Nothing about this government, you name the area, feel great. Please note, I try my best to be very fair to them. I did not say everything they do was bad. There are good things. They might have built a few good institutions, or not institutions, because institutions talks about something that have some level of continuity and system in place and stuff. But they will build a few 1-2 buildings for different things, whether it be schools, daycares. I see something for children with disability. That's good, but I heard a story about the madhouse. But then again, there's another conversation for another time. What is happening with the people with mental illness? What are we doing? Come on. What about people who suffer with drug abuse and stuff? And so what are we doing? Nothing. Talking about health education. When last year they talk a campaign about diabetes? When last year a campaign about AIDS? When last year a campaign about anything health related? Nothing. So you telling me, was it? When last have you heard a call for patriotism and so on? And nothing. This video is supposed to come to an end, so I'm coming to an end now. My point is that PPP is a failure, and better must come. I'm going to tell you that could happen come the 4th of September if you put your vote at AFC. I thank you for giving me your time. I'm going to click stop now, because it seems like I'm going to continue talking about. I'm telling you, when you think about this government, they would have failed this nation. And while persons are deciding on what some people say they have already decided, I don't want to believe that. I want you to take some time and listen to what AFC has to offer. and make an informed decision come the 4th of September. Thank you. Do have a wonderful life ahead.